says no 6:15.
Welcome everybody. We're going to big agenda tonight, so it's a nice warm evening. I'm glad everybody just relaxed. We didn't tell our engineer that he didn't have to wear a tie tonight. Kind of got him on a bit of a spot, but otherwise we're all kind of dressed for the casual, so I hope you don't mind. So we've got lots of things on the go, so we want to get going. There's a couple things. If anybody's here for Drain 39, I believe you're not going to. So if you're here for Drain 39, it's just going to be deferred back to us. There's some more workings to do on some of the numbers. So if anybody's here for that, don't want to stick around for all this other great stuff we're going to be doing, I'll give them a free pass at this point in time, or they can hang in. Okay?
Why is it being referred back?
Oh, well, if you want to wait, Terry, till he actually goes up and talks about it, that's fine too. I just want to try to give you and then he'll explain to it why it's being deferred back, okay? So you might want to hang until that part of the program. Okay? All right. I'll call it to order. Disclosure any pecuniary interest under the municipal conflict of interest act. Has anybody got any conflicts? No? Minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, second by Councillor Caldwell, that the minutes of the June 5th, 2018 council meeting be approved. All in favor? Okay. Additional items? I've got one. Mary Lou? Okay. Ron and Judy. Okay. Well, if you got some later, let me know. Okay. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, that the Town of Minto Council convenes in the committee of the whole. All in favor? And public meetings. Okay, so the first one we have up, I can't seem to get strategic plan. Oh yeah, okay, it doesn't have it marked in here. First one is the strategic plan, and I'm going to turn that over to CEO Bill White to go through that. We'll get it up on the screen here.
Mayor Bridge. Anything here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're getting in here. Oh, that's in.
Okay, thank you for your patience. Just wanted to make sure everyone who watches this on cable gets to see the presentation as well. Appreciate the large audience tonight. I'm pretty sure most of you aren't here for the strategic plan presentation. Bear with me. I'll hopefully be reasonably brief. When council does some major initiative like its budget or strategic plan, we often like to have a couple of quotes. So the first one talks about if your plan is not working, pivot. If it is working, do more of it. That's from a current brand strategy and leadership consultant. And then the next one is from an ancient Chinese military strategist. So I like the difference in age, but sort of similar message. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. The council has seen this slide on many occasions about our hierarchy of plans. We start with the strategic plan in 2013. We have the official plan, which is done by the County of Wellington, and then several different smaller plans that go underneath. The one that's highlighted there in yellow is our succession plan. Another plan that would go under in that location is our cemetery management plan. We have a draft plan of that tonight for discussion later. Our first strategic plan was done in 2006, and then it had an update in 2009. In 2012, 2013, the previous council did a major revamp of the strategic plan. Over 100 people took part in 9 meetings. And that plan has 98 actions and 9 core business areas. And it keeps the branding of where your family belongs. So that's continued to be how we brand ourselves in Minto. In September of 2015, we had a public meeting, and unlike tonight, there were no people in attendance. But we'll see if anybody wishes to speak on the plan once we're done this presentation. In June 2018, I gave council a report on some changes that had come out of the committee work, one in the Economic Development Committee section and the other in the Parks and Recreation Committee. That little picture on the side there is of actually the 1969 Apollo 11 launch. And what I find interesting about that is the small circle moving through from top to bottom, or from bottom to top, is actually the moon moving through its orbit around Earth. And you can see the Earth, that's the big circle kind of on the left side of the slide. And the purple, basically Apollo 11 took off from Earth, and it made 3 course corrections before it actually was able to complete its mission and return back to the Earth. So I guess we're in the midst of a little bit of a course correction right now, just making sure we're on track with our strategic plan. As a reminder, that's our vision and mission. The vision is sort of the beacon in the distance, and the mission is how you perform daily to get to that beacon. And council has seen those slides on numerous occasions going back to 2012. We have a number of guiding principles that cover how we do our business here at the town. The one town feel is, again, trying to talk about Minto being a community of the whole, but also not losing individual community identities as well. There's other things in there about customer service and partnerships, engagement, the environment, and so forth. I mentioned there was 98 actions. Those are the core areas that they're in, and they're spread pretty evenly amongst those things. The plan also has a 5-year time frame and can go up to 10 years. So we're now in our 5th or 6th year of the plan, and we report annually to council on the strategic plan. It's referred in all our reports and also at our budget. And then we've consulted every 2 years with the public, and then we're supposed to do a full review every 5. Part of the discussion tonight is, rather than having a full review now, we'll defer that to the new council, and the new council can put its mind to the strategic plan then. So that's one of the recommendations contained in here. Back in 2015, I won't go through this slide in detail, but you can see a few little things there that we imagined we might be doing in the next 3 years. Some of those you can see we did. IPM 2016, for example. Planning for procurement, we've done a new procurement bylaw. Trees for Minto's made some advances. We've done some work on our fleet with Public Works. So some key things that have been done since 2015, number of actions, and this presentation is online on the agenda, and there's specific references to each of the actions in the plan. So for example, in-migration programs is under section 4.2 of our strategic plan. We've been into alumni attraction, the Filipino outreach, and the county immigration work, and it goes on through down there. One of the bigger ones is structural improvement grants. So in 2015, 2016, we expanded our community improvement plan, and we've seen a number of buildings improve under that, such as the Old Post, the Brett Young Seeds in Clifford, the former Max in Palmerston, and so forth. There's other initiatives in there that are talked about, some of the social media stuff from Minto Fire, acquiring the Weiss Junction Trail, completing the link from Palmerston and Harriston. So there's some more actions. Fleet management, that picture down in the corner shows 3 vehicles going into 1. So we actually saved $500,000 in vehicle replacement costs, which was an initiative of our Public Works Department, and it ranges around our snow removal process now. So some other enhancements in here: community development, youth and wellness at the bottom. There's a lot of information going out recently about the mental health and suicide prevention initiative through Minto Fire and the high school and Minto Youth Action Council, and that's just gaining momentum now. But you can see that there's been quite a lot of progress under the plan. Very quickly then, the changes that we're going to ask councils to consider under the recreation section, reference to physical literacy. So the red part is the new part. Section 7 is pretty much, since it's all in black there, that's basically only one minor change there. But basically what physical literacy is, overall health and wellness. So we're trying to benefit persons of all ages and put this is new, not a buzzword, but a new way of thinking in the recreation side of things. 7.4, again, the red change is just promoting awareness of the trails. We've been working on the link for some time. 7.7 in recreation, completing a parks, recreation, and facilities master plan. We want to be very specific there, and that process will start with the terms of reference coming to the new council before the end of this year. And 7.9, just adding in asset management planning for recreation. This is a new requirement of the province, and without going into a long explanation, it basically means you have to depreciate your assets over time and plan for their replacement. A couple of changes in economic development. They've been working hard on events for a long period of time. I think when we started the strategic plan years ago, we imagined that we would facilitate events, but we've got into a lot of actual event running, and I think committee was wanting to try and not limit that, but put some controls on that and focus on downtown culture attractions and community celebrations. And there were things called regional tourism advisory committees years ago. 8.9 used to refer to that. Now instead we've substituted in Youth Action Council work, which has taken on a strong dynamic in this part of Wellington County in particular. Another change in economic development is programs that encourage active and engaged seniors. We did refer to people of all ages in our recreation side of things, but we just wanted to make sure that we are engaging with our senior community as well, which is one of our larger growing populations. We used to have a requirement or a action in there that referenced working with local accommodators, and that doesn't mean we won't continue to do that. And if you look at 12.1, it talks about working with private business, and we will continue to do that. The only change in 12.1 is we had bought the Harrison Lyons Medical Center by forming a municipal service corporation, and we'll continue to operate that, and the strategic change allows that to continue to go on. A couple other changes relate to our electronic meetings. You see now we're all electronic. Council has their iPads. We distribute the full agendas and all our budget items online, so the public can see all the same reports that council does before the meetings. So starting, including our budget meetings, where everything that you get, the public can see. Also, of course, we record our meetings. And the last change is probably the most important change. And if we were to reevaluate the plan every 5 years, then this plan would be reevaluated by this council now. And I believe it's more important for the new councilors or new council to deal with that. And so the plan talks about reviewing it or with every new council following a municipal election. So what I see being done here are minor tweaks, really. But the main change that we need to put in there is that the plan should be looked at every 5 years. And that means full public consultation, not just a public meeting, maybe some facilitation, however council at the time chooses to do that. But so that's a pretty important change. And if we don't do anything else to the plan, I would hope that council would do that. So that's all I have to say. We're looking for questions and public input at this point to anything that was shown here tonight.
I'll turn it over to the public first, and if the councilors want to ask any questions. And I believe when you say public input, Bill, if we get from this presentations going out, if anybody wants to write in any public input, they can do that.
That's right. I guess what I was hoping for would be that if we had any input tonight or anything that came in writing after tonight, that July 3rd we would actually do a bylaw to approve changes that have been reviewed here. Council's seen this would be about the fourth time for some on council who would have seen some of them at the committee level too.
Really?
Through you, Mayor Bridge, just one question. You're saying every 5 years. Would it be too cumbersome to do it every 4 years and then it would coincide with elections?
Through you, Mayor Bridge, I guess the reason is it started in 2013, so you could put it to every 4 years. What it says is every 5 years or with the new term of council, whichever way you try. I guess I'm leaving it open and depending on how the next council wants to do it. But you could put it to every 4 years too, but then it would be 2021 and that would move it back. But I guess I like the idea of the new council putting their mind to this
I agree
early in
with
their
you
term.
100% on that. I'm thinking every new council, if that was one of their roles,
Yeah.
fairly new into their, kind of set the tone for the next 4 years.
Right. That's what I think we're trying to accomplish here. If I may.
So if it isn't too cumbersome to renew it every 4 years, I amend it that it is actually said with every new council.
Well, it says there in red, or with every new council. You could reevaluate the plan with every new council if you want. Yeah.
Then that just takes the years out of it, is what you're saying, Councilor.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes
Sure.
it easier, more simpler. Yeah. And that's what we want to get. We want the new council to have opportunity to review a strategic plan, and then they have that for their term of council, which would be 4 years, right? Second by Dave. All right for that. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Anything else? So we got the press here tonight. Sorry, Judy. Sorry.
No, mine was the same. Every 4 years was
Okay. Right. Yeah, and the press is here, so they'll be getting out to people. So you have till the next council meeting to get some input back in.
Right. We were on social media. There was advertisements in the Wellington Advertiser, and I think Minto Express as well.
Yeah. Good.
There's no further public comment.
No. Any other further public comment? I just want to commend you, Bill, for putting this together. And as you notice, when you look at all our documentation, any of our reports that we have done since I think the last two councils, is you always have whatever the report's all about. You always have the strategic plan up in the top, just to make sure that we're following the strategic plan. I think that's very important. I talked to some other councils, and I think they lose track of what the strategic plan's all about because they don't see that. So if we've got something on whatever, you'll see the actual highlight as to why that is important for us to be discussing, because it's part of the strategic, and we keep that. Thank you very much for the report. Okay, do we have somebody move the report? I'll show you. Councilor Anderson, all in favor? Very good.
So bad.
Okay, so next is it's my first one. Okay, now we're going to get into 3 other public meetings. So I'm going to start with this one, and this is a public meeting. Public meeting is to consider the amendment of the town Minto zoning bylaw number 0186 for property located on 6280 Highway 89, town of Minto. I'll act as the chair of the public meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Request any member of the public present to please sign the attendance record. Everybody has, and I'll state the following. Person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Minto before the bylaw is passed. Persons or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the town of Minto to the local planning appeal tribunal. And the persons or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'll ask CEO Clerk White to state the municipal address and legal description of the property and purpose and effect of the application. The date notice was sent.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. We do have a seat here and a seat beside the staff if we wanted to.
Yes,
How many
people are standing.
were having to stand back there? Standing room only. Sure, it was the strategic plan.
It was.
There's a seat up here, right here.
Yep.
Or you can move the seat if you want to.
Thanks. The purpose and effect, the property subject to the proposed amendment is lot 18 and 19, concession 15. The mayor gave the municipal address. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit a dog kennel on the second level of the bank barn. The lands are currently zoned agricultural and natural environment and are occupied by a single dwelling, bank barn, and shed. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. Notice was mailed to property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the lands and applicable agencies May 28, 2018. It was also posted on the lands. Comments were received from town and Minto staff. Building assistant's report is attached, and she's here tonight to present that report. Curtis Marshall, senior planner, and Jessica Wilson, junior planner of Wellington County, their report is attached. Michael Oberly of the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, his report is attached, and I don't believe he had any concerns with the application.
Maybe I'll have Michelle come up and with the town report.
Through you, Mayor Bridge. The subject property is
Michelle,
zoned.
just make sure you're into the
Yes.
mic there, because
Is it on?
yeah, just move it up for you so you can. That work? Just that all your public won't hear you, and then they get all mad
Are we all mad? Can you hear me now?
on television.
Yes.
On television. Okay, so the subject property is zoned agricultural, natural environment, and contains a residential dwelling, shed, bank barn, and is approximately 196 acres. The intent of the application is to rezone the subject land to provide the operation of a dog kennel on the second level of the existing bank barn, which I've highlighted in red on the report. The applicant currently operates a successful kennel on his existing property and is in the process of purchasing the subject property. Staff met and are in support of the zoning amendment and respectively request the council to consider passing the bylaw in this evening's open session. The applicant is present. Should you have any other questions?
And then also, are you doing the county one, or are you just, if anybody has any questions?
I guess I could just summarize it.
Okay.
I believe they indicated in their comments there. Planning staff generally have no concerns with the rezoning to permit the kennel. It conforms with the official plan and is consistent with provincial policy. Under the town's bylaw to regulate and license the keeping of dogs in kennels, the applicant will have to submit a detailed site plan to indicate how it meets the requirements of the licensing bylaw.
Right. Any questions for Michelle or the other two reports there? Council? No? Okay. I can call on the applicant if they want to provide any comments, or if they don't have to, if they don't want to. But if they want to, they can. I'll call on the anyone who wishes to comment in favor of the proposed amendment. Anybody wishing to oppose? Would you like to come up and state your name and your opposition for the record?
My name's Jim Tooney, and I live just to the west of the proposed new kennel. And my concern is that the applicant currently has a kennel, and under the Corporation of the Town of Minto bylaw 2016-13, section F, under kennels, number 13 states that kennels shall be owned, managed, and are operated by the property owner on which the kennel is located, and the kennel owner, operator, manager shall reside on the subject property. So the applicant currently has a kennel, so he's living on one place, so he's not going to be able to live on both places. And my concern is also that the dwelling on the current property is not habitable. Like the house, you can't live in it.
Is that all the comments?
And that's their
Yeah.
comments. Okay.
So Mayor Bridge, we do have our bylaw enforcement officer here. I think the intent here was to secure the zoning for this, and then as it mentions in the county report, there would need to get a kennel license, and they may need an exemption to that section, but I think Cam Forbes could speak to that more directly.
Yeah, see, I can't remember, but we do have an exemption policy. So that would all be addressed through the licensing application. It would be up to council to approve or not approve an exemption. It's the same thing as having cattle on a different property. Mervyn is not that far away from that property, so like I said, it would be up to council to decide whether he is granted an exemption to that section number 13.
So if I read this right, we have to come back to him for the
Mhm.
exception. So there'd be another opportunity at that point in time. This is for the zoning.
Okay.
Okay, but a good question, and then we'll have a separate report on that. Right?
Well, if I may, Mayor Bridge, just add, I mean, if council's not supportive of the zoning, they should maybe hear from the applicant if he has any response to what's been
Okay.
said here.
Well, that we can do
Because
that.
council could put an end to it real quick if
Yeah.
they don't
Okay.
do the zoning.
And I have one other question as well.
Okay. Well, let's hear both of them, and then we can try to answer both.
Also under the Corporation of Town of Minto bylaw 2016-13, it says that kennels are subject to the Environmental Protection Act, RSO 1990, and that all waste produced from breeding, boarding, and stabling is defined as industrial waste. And I'd like to know how that waste is going to be handled.
Can't answer that, Mayor Bridge, but
I'm looking at you. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it's up to the, I mean, if that's the questions of the individual, then I can't answer how the waste is going to be handled. I don't know if the bylaw enforcement officer can or can't, but it's up to the applicant if they wish to make a rebuttal. I think your public meeting procedure allows
Yep.
that.
For rebuttal. Yes, that's next up.
So if that's all.
Thanks for those two questions, and we'll see what we got now going forward.
Thank you.
Is the applicant want to speak to those two items?
So what was the first question?
I believe it was the you won't be living on the property.
Okay. I have a friend who worked for me when he was 13, 14, and 15, and he asked about renting the house. And he's early 20s now. And he helps on the farm too, or he's experienced with driving tractors, and I was in that house too, the roof's not leaking. Coat of paint would be good for a 21-year-old, I thought, or he would think so. And he was talking about the waste.
The waste, yeah.
He means the
dog.
Well, that goes.
Yeah.
At home, it goes in the cattle pen. It's 90% shavings, so they compost it.
Great. Any questions for the applicant?
So I'm just trying to understand this. You have a farm with a kennel. You're looking to build or buy another farm and start another kennel rather than just enlarge the one you have. Is there a reason for that? Is that because of our kennel laws and the numbers of dogs, or I'm not quite understanding what we're doing?
Cam can maybe.
Yeah, each kennel is not allowed unless you're in existence before, and I forget what year it was. Each kennel is allowed a maximum of 25 dogs.
Okay.
So this would be a separate kennel.
So you have 25 dogs in your kennel now?
Yes.
So if you were to build the second kennel, if the young fellow, I don't know if the house is habitable or not habitable, but I imagine it would have to be examined. But if it wasn't, if there was nobody there, how would you monitor these dogs? How would you, I know cattle, we have cattle down the road, but we think of dogs as somewhat a little different than cattle. I certainly do, sorry. I don't know whether everybody does, but
Sorry.
you'd be wanting to know, how are these dogs doing? They're down in a barn or a structure that has a house that nobody lives in, and where is your farm in relation? I don't know all the farms around.
Well, if you look on the screen there,
You're the one beside the lavender place?
beside it, across the road.
Okay, down here where the N arrow is, that his house? I don't know where you live.
It's the next one to the east.
Okay. So what's the distance? You won't hear the dogs from where you are. If something got into the dogs, or the dogs, they're going to be in kennels, they're enclosed. If there's a risk to them or a harm to them, or if it's too hot, or if there's a toxic gas, they can't get out. So who's monitoring the dogs? Or keeping an eye on the dogs? Or do we have an audio-visual system? I doubt it, probably, based on your background.
The person in the house would be.
That's if there's somebody in the house.
Yeah.
But is the house habitable? I don't know this property at all. Is the house habitable?
Wait. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting a little off topic a little bit, but
Well, Mayor Bridge, I guess there's two questions here.
Yeah.
Tonight, you're here to talk about the land use. So the land use, is the land use appropriate? And you've heard from the county planners and our staff that as far as the land use, we're fine with it. The concerns that are expressed related to the waste and the habitability of the building and whether there's an owner operator on the property relate, I think, to licensing. So I mean, they're fair questions to talk about tonight, but I can't answer whether it's habitable or not habitable. But if in the licensing process it's important that council have someone living there and that it's habitable, then that would need to come forward when the license.
So
I think you have to put your mind to whether the land use is appropriate or not.
So
But
we
if
just
the sale of the farm is contingent on the zoning path, I'm assuming that's what's happening here. That if you don't get the zoning to put the dogs in, would you be buying the property anyway? Or would that change your mind? I'm assuming the two are connected. So that's why I'm asking those questions now rather than let the zoning go through and then find out, oops, we're not going to let you have your kennel there. Because of kenneling registrations or regulations rather than zoning. Yes, it could be used for barns, like we're changing the use of the land. You could use it for anything else, but if you're not going to be allowed to have the kennel on, then I think it's pertinent questions. If they are, to my mind, it would potentially.
Well, I guess
change
it's
my
a
mind.
risk of the individual, though. I guess,
Okay,
Councillor Anderson.
just so they understand.
Yeah.
That that's
Because there could be
a possibility.
possible. Yeah. Am I right on that?
Yeah, Mayor Bridge. I mean, it's a timing thing. The bylaw is on for adoption tonight. You don't have to adopt it tonight. If you're not comfortable, you could ask for the licensing information to come back at the next meeting and then consider the bylaw then. It's really up to you if you want to put everything all together. If you're concerned about the applicant making a decision to buy and then turning them down on a kennel license later, then you're not under any obligation to pass the bylaw tonight. If you're still willing to hear from people, you hear from people tonight and then ask and pull the bylaw and have him come back with his licensing exemption at a subsequent meeting and do it all at once or not do it. You can make the decision then. Tonight you're to hear on the land use issue.
Which is why we have public meetings, is we had a objection to some of the things and has been brought a couple things to light, which now we're discussing. Had that not happened, we probably wouldn't be
Right.
here.
I'm just thinking
So-
it's fair to them.
But what I heard too, that there is an exception under the bylaw that we can do an exception, but we have to have exception. So if it's the council's decision to have it all come at the same time, I have no problem with that one way or the other.
Mayor Bridge, I've heard enough that I think we need a little more information and the answers to some of these questions. So would it be appropriate for me to make a motion to defer this the next meeting so that all the information could come forward at the same time?
As long as I think you want to hear from anyone else who's here tonight for the public meeting, and then after we've heard from the public, then that would be it.
Yeah, because there might be still some more comments.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, it's just that we get complaints when people say, well, somebody said something in the background, we don't know who it was. Okay.
Yeah, my just one comment was under the Environmental Protection Act, industrial waste has to be treated either with a sewage treatment plant or a septic tank. I just like that, and that sawdust and compost doesn't cut it.
Well, and thanks for that. I mean, I wanted to be in the debate on it. It was a good point, but I also go back. We take this back and have a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Then I would suggest
I'm prepared to make that a motion that we defer it to the next council meeting.
Second by Councilor Turton. All in favor? Okay. Yeah. So we'll work on some of those things at this point in time. Okay. Now I have to close this down. Yep. Okay. So as chair, I will state, if you wish to be notified of the decision of council of the town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw number bylaw amendment application, you may make a written request to the clerk of town of Minto at 594189 Harrison OG 1ZO by email Bill White, town of Minto.on.ca. So there's no further comments. We've got it deferred and we'll go from there. Thank you. This is now closed. Good discussion. Next up is a public meeting. Notice of Engineers Report Section 4 of the and 78 Drainage Act, Municipal Drain 39, 2018, parts of lots 5 to 7, concessions 6 and 7 in the town of Minto, County of Wellington. Public meeting to consider the engineer's report regarding draining on 39, 2018. I'll act as the chair of the public meeting. CEO Clerk White to outline the purpose of the meeting is to consider the engineering report prepared by Dietrich Engineering Limited, dated June 5th, 2018, for drain 39, 2018. Notice of the meeting was sent to what? That's your view.
Well, you keep going.
No,
You're doing a great
I don't want
job.
to take your job. You jump in here anytime you want, Bill.
Notices of the meeting were sent to 10 landowners along with copies of the report. As well, copies of the report were circulated to town staff, Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Ministry of Natural Resources, and Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. And we did get a letter today from them. I think it's on your desk regarding, that's for drain 60 and 2. So
No, it's not the one.
not that.
39. Okay. I will call on the engineer to provide a summary of the report. And I believe, Greg, you got to discuss this. And that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bridge. Unfortunately, in preparation for this evening's meeting, I was going through this report and I realized that there's an error in it. The scope of work did not get updated to reflect the assessment schedule that's in this report. So I would respectfully request council to refer this report back to the engineer to have those corrections made. If that is done, we intend to, it's not going to take long to change it. We intend to have it filed with the municipality so that it could be mailed out this Friday and we could actually have the consideration of a complete and accurate report. I believe at the July 3rd meeting.
Okay.
Is that
So
your
you
next
have
council
it
meeting?
ready for July 3rd?
Yes.
Okay. Because there's some people here today that were coming for this.
Yes, and my apologies to council and everyone I've inconvenienced by this error.
So,
Just a question, like, if this is a critical, I guess, decision, but the result's going to be the same, could we, if you told us what those, the scope of that is, and if it's not critical, then could we not pass it with the amendments that you suggest?
well,
Perhaps.
well, the only thing, are you going to be comfortable with discussing all the different things until you get?
I would be. I would be.
All right.
Perhaps if it would make it the decision easier for council. Most of the errors are in the road crossings.
Oh.
The
road crossings.
Yes. The price of steel for Jack and Bore, the price of steel has gone through the roof, and with some of the
I wonder why.
tenders we've been closing lately, it appeared as though we were a little bit light on some of our structures, that type of thing. That's basically it. Nothing changed. We're not changing locations. We're not changing sizes of pipes or anything like that. It's just that the scope of work and the item prices are not as accurate as what I think they should be.
Okay. So, and if I,
Page number?
yeah, if I'm thinking that it's going to be around the roads, a lot of that will be our cost, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So,
That's right.
so it won't be actually hitting any of the other. Okay.
Wouldn't
Well,
change the landowners.
And if I could clarify, the dollars and cents, I know we're not really here to talk about that tonight, but the dollars and cents, that's correct.
Oh,
You'll
okay.
just notice that it's about $10,000 difference if you look at.
Well, if you're comfortable, Greg, I've got people here already, and I think they want to talk about this. So
Okay.
if we could move it on, and if that's all right, and if there's we've already clarified those
Okay.
errors.
Mayor Bridge, could you refer us to the page so I could put it
Sure.
on the screen?
Oh yeah, we need it on screen.
Okay. The errors occur on pages
Very long.
9, 10, 9, 10, and 11. The rest of the report is okay.
So 9 is on the screen now. Is that the right 9?
17, yes, that's it. Okay, for instance, let me just get the correct one here. For instance, the installation of that Jack and Bore pipe should be, now it's estimated to be 12,000 rather than 9,000.
Where's the Jack and Bore pipe on this, if I may, Mayor Bridge?
A, the second pattern.
Yep.
17A.
That goes from 9,000
to 12,000.
12,000?
Yep.
Right here.
And we've adjusted a couple of catch basins, which here we had two 600 by 600s. Now we're recommending 900 by 1200s. So that goes from 4,000 to 6,000
So in the same section?
in the same section.
That'd be
Yeah,
19B, right?
that's right.
No, 19.
And yes, 17. 17B.
Oh, 17.
Yep. And
So
17.
there's also one on 19.
Yes. Yeah. And 17C, it should be $2,500, and that's
Okay.
the price in the change in those basins is just because the tenders we've been having coming in, contractors are actually pretty busy. A lot of them are actually starting to bid for next year, so we're not getting as good a prices. So to try to keep this up with the times, we've made some adjustments. But that's the type of thing that we're looking at.
All right, so you good with that?
Yep,
So
I'm
let's
good with
go
that.
ahead on the regular, and I'll get you to provide a summary of the report.
Okay.
And then we can work through anybody in attendance that wants to speak to it.
Okay. As you've already mentioned, you've covered the area that it serves, and this is a report under Section 78 and 4 of the Drainage Act. We had a petition from Mike McIsaac, the road foreman. That's a 4.1C, so that's no one's able to contest that. The history, we had an original report done. This was actually done over about 3 different sections, and we had one of the earlier reports was 1957. We had another report done by Spreet for another section of the drain in 1991, and Spreet's also did another. They extended it in 1997. In accordance with Section 9.1 of the Drainage Act, we had an on-site meeting. We had good attendance at that meeting. We took into consideration some landowner comments, etc. We had an information meeting on March 9th where we put our proposed design, location, all that sort of thing together. We had some good feedback from that. Went back out into the field, did a little bit more surveying to accommodate a new landowner in the watershed. And the report we're putting before you today is, if you take a look at the drawing at the back, drawing 1 of 2, you can see that it consists of a main drain and a branch drain. The main drain is the orange line, and it ranges from 12-inch concrete tile or 300 millimeter diameter to 18-inch or 450. And it's approximately 1,078 meters in length. It's got a bunch of catch basins, 3 road crossings, and we're also including a branch, which is the little green line on that page, just up to provide an outlet for water coming across from the south side of the road from the Savage property. That'll prevent it from flooding that area there, and we'll get it right into the drain as quick as possible. If we turn to the assessment of costs are on page 13 for the main drain, 14 for the branch C drain. And you'll see that the main drain is estimated to be a total of $204,900. That is actually the correct number. And the branch C is estimated to be $9,000. And then we've put everything together in a summary on page 15, which is the yellow page. We've taken the individual total assessments for the main drain, total assessments for branch C, added them up, and we've calculated any grants. There's a 1/3 government grant available for anyone who qualifies for the farm tax class rate. We've calculated that amount. We've provided allowances under this report under section 29 and 30. That's for right-of-way and damages. We've calculated those here. So if you take the total assessment, find your property, take the total assessment, less the 1/3 government grant if your property qualifies, less any allowances that were provided under the Drainage Act, the far right column, the net assessment, or basically your out-of-pocket expenses for the scope of work, the accurate scope of work as presented here today. I think at this point in time, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Just for my own information, one of my computer died while we were in the middle of this report, so I'm going by memory here. I believe it was point 4. It said M&M Martin are going to systematically tile 5 acres outside of the catchment area. And to drain into that drain. So my question is, from this point on, does M&M Martin automatically become a landowner in that drain 39?
Yeah, actually, he was a landowner in it.
Oh, he already was a
Yeah,
landowner.
he just wants to bring lands from the other side of the laneway into this drain rather than force a new drain in another direction.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just, if I may bridge through you. So the assessment cost, which I think I have up there in yellow,
yes,
and all the landowners should have this report anyway. So that's accurate,
correct,
even with
correct.
so that's what they know what their assessed amount is, and that wouldn't change even though the front part.
Correct.
Okay.
Our portion.
Pardon?
Our portions change a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, figure.
Excuse me. No.
No.
The dollars and cents is
They're
correct.
right on this.
Yeah. The scope of work,
First
materials,
charge,
and estimated cost for some of the materials. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the?
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Greg, so all the landowners were present at the on-site meetings, or one or two?
I can't say that all of them were. Most of them
Most of them
were.
were?
Yeah, they're listed here. We had good turnout.
Yeah, but we have an open. They can come and
Yeah,
talk.
so everybody had a chance to put their problems forward if they had any.
Okay. All right. So just hang close. Mike, did you want to make any comments? You're good.
Hang it over.
I'll call any persons I will call any persons in attendance wishing to provide information that might influence council's decision on the matter now. If you want to stick close, right? Anybody wants to talk about the drain. Nobody? Okay.
I think they just wanted to go ahead.
Well, I would like, these things take so much time, but we can talk about that later. I'll provide opportunity to affected landowners to either add or remove their names from section 4 of the petition. Okay. And you guys have all asked your questions already. I'll state council must decide whether or not to proceed with the project by visually adopting the engineer's report by bylaw or referring the report back to the engineer for modifications. There's no right to appeal assessments or other aspects of the engineer's report at this meeting. These appeal rights will be made available later in the procedure. So I will ask the clerk will note a bylaw, if appropriate, will be presented at a subsequent meeting if the wish of the council.
That's correct, Mayor Bridge. So we will put the bylaw on next meeting, July 3rd, and that would formally adopt this. And I guess the question is, what's the procedure after that? So we go ahead to work tender, or
After
the bylaws adopted?
Sure. The procedures after that, at the July 3rd meeting, I believe, you'll give a provisional bylaw first and second reading, and then there will be a notice go out to all landowners for what's called the quarter revision, and that's where they can kind of dispute that we haven't distributed those costs appropriately. After that, we can call tenders.
We're getting close. Okay, good.
And hopefully, we have 3 projects to call tenders on at the same time, so hopefully we get a bit better.
Okay. That's good.
So do we need to reword anything tonight then? Okay.
I don't think so. It was just Greg was concerned because there was a mistake in that first part. So I'm glad we went on with it because that's the way we can get it going. I'll officially adjourn the meeting and consider engineer's report for drain 39 2018. Okay, moving on to the next one.
It'll be a lot easier.
You think? This is the notice of engineer's report, section 78 Drainage Act, municipal drain 60 2018, lots 23 and 24, concession 4, lots 24, concession 15, the town of Minto, county of Wellington. A public meeting to consider the engineer's report regarding drain 60 2018. I'll act as the chair of the public meeting. I'll ask the CEO clerk to outline the purpose of the meeting. Is to consider that the engineering report be prepared.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Notice of the meeting was sent to 3 landowners along with copies of the report. As well, copies of the report were circulated to town staff. Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and Ministry of Natural Resources. And this is their letter here, right? So they have no objection to the adoption of the report. They will not be in attendance to the meeting tonight, and a permit under their regulation will not be required to be obtained for the work as described. That's what I have.
Okay. Now we'll call on the engineer to provide a summary of the report.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. This will go a lot smoother than the last one.
Careful.
This right. This is a Section 78 report, not a petition report.
Right.
The original drain was constructed in 1964. The upper end was later. It was improved in 2005. The design standard for this project for the lower end is 1.5 inch drainage coefficient. That's kind of our normal standard today. That's what Dietrich Engineering recommends anyway. The watershed serves about 26.1 hectares. That's about 64.5 acres. We've provided allowances on page 5 for damages and right-of-way. All the work is on Bruce Shannon's property. The assessment page is on page 8, the yellow, and the same format as before. It's set up in a series of columns with a lot description followed by the approximate hectares affected. That's not necessarily all the property that is owned, but what's within the blue watershed lines, followed by the owner, an abbreviated version of the roll number, and then benefit, outlet, total assessment, and once again the 1/3 government grant where applicable. And allowances, in this case the allowances were all to the B. Shannon property because all the work is on the Shannon property. And at the far right is your net or estimated out-of-pocket expenses for this project. And I think at this point in time I'd like to answer any questions anyone might have.
Sure. And Mike, did you have any comments? Okay, so here. I'll call any person in attendance wishing to provide information that might influence council decisions. Anybody want to speak to this? Council have any questions? Well, you're right, this one's a little more straightforward. I'll state the council must decide whether or not to proceed with the project by visually adopting the engineer's report by bylaw or referring the report back to the engineer for modifications. There's no right to appeal assessments or other aspects of the engineer's report at this meeting. Those appeals rights will be made available later in the procedure. I'll ask the CEO clerk. You will note.
So same as last one, I guess. We'll give 2 readings to the bylaw July 3rd, and then they'll sit as quarter revision after that. And that'll probably be in August, I would think. And then hopefully that gets adopted and we go to tender on all 3 at once.
That'd be nice. Yep. Okay. I'll officially adjourn the meeting. Consider the engineer's report for the drainage 60 2018. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Guess we're at delegations now, huh? I think so. Okay. Well, I have the pleasure of having a presentation tonight, and I see. Bob, you didn't get the memo either. You didn't have to wear a tie, but that's all right. I'd like to call Bob McEachran up to accept the award presented, Senior of the Year Award 2018, presented to Robert Becker at the Municipality of Town of Minto in recognition of the outstanding contributions to your community after age 65.
You need to say all that in a mic.
I know. This doesn't really tell.
He did actually.
Here's the mic.
I need the mic, I guess. We have to have the mic. Okay, here we go. No, it's one little piece of paper, but Bob, you've done a great job throughout your career, both at the high school and also what you've done since you retired. And what you're doing at the museum is amazing. We're really moving that forward, and I'm really excited about it. Bob, from time to time, even gets to have to go back and be principal every now and again. Last week, I was looking for you, were principal that day, and the students were there, said, no, he's back looking after the rest of them. And we just, as a council and myself, I just want to say, this is just a little slip of paper, but we really have you close to our hearts, and you've done a great job for the community, and thank you very much for your contributions over the years.
Thank you very much. I really recommend the people watching this what has happened to Heritage in Minto. This afternoon I had classes of Norwell students on handcars. The heritage of Palmerston and in many ways the heritage of Minto is tied to the railway. And railway and moving mass transit is coming back. So what in one sense may seem like something old and historic is becoming modern again. And the town's on site. The town's doing things to bring people to the town. The number of people, like every cup of coffee that's purchased in Minto by someone who visits the station is an extra cup of coffee, extra meal, and people enjoy it. And we've had people moving to town and are now coming into the station and taking a look. It's a walkable community. The work of the Lions, it's a marvelous place to live. And I'm still here. I didn't leave.
We're glad. Thank you. We're glad. Thank you very much.
We weren't sure if you were old enough to win this award. So.
That's a good one. Make sure you see Bob at the handcar race on Saturday. Commercial on that. Thank you. Where are we?
Is this the time for me to say we'll leave all these people here for me?
That's exactly right.
You could. Sorry,
Nice tie, Bob.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations. I don't.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Let's see what's that. Oh, maybe. Well, that could be it. Okay. Next up, we have Derek. I believe you're Derek, right?
Hey, Derek.
Come on up, Derek. Derek Richmond is here from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers and Expansion Postal Services. And anybody that was at FCM, you were there.
I was not at FCM, but I was at OSUM and
Yep.
AMO and Roma. I think I see some familiar faces.
Yeah, and I know your reports here, but I just say that I know the Postal Union has fought hard to keep rural posts out here, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
Again, my name is Derek Richmond. I'm the Ontario Region Coordinator for the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. I'd like to thank everyone for this opportunity to speak to Council on expanding service and protecting public post offices. So this is the brief history. On December 2013, the government announced a 5-point plan, which included the elimination of door-to-door delivery, and over 850,000 residents lost their homes between January 2014 and October 2015. Part of this 5-point plan included the closure of some rural post office and additional service cuts, including centralized mail sortation. Over 600 municipalities passed resolutions against the 5-point plan. When the Liberal government won the federal election and imposed a moratorium to stop CMBs, the Liberal government also conducted a review of Canada Post by the Standing Committee on the Government Operations. The committee held hearings in 22 communities. They heard from municipal governments, businesses, stakeholders, and community groups. The OGGO committee created the Way Forward report on the future of Canada Post with over 45 recommendations to improve service. A summary of these recommendations is included in your package. I would like to draw your attention to a few that focus on service expansion. Recommendation 23, to continue the moratorium on community mailboxes. Recommendation 20, Canada Post review the impact on efficiency of delivery before implementing strategic strategies such as local processing for centralized processing. 29, Canada Post examine ways to provide more services to meet the service level commitments in all types of communities using its existing retail network. 39, Canada Post explore location-specific opportunities for the post offices to act as community hubs and respond to the local needs of its surrounding community. Recommendation 36, Canada Post preserve its post offices along with the associated moratorium on the closure of rural post offices. I would like to expand on recommendation 39, which is to explore using Canada Post as a community hub. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers embarked on our campaign on a service expansion, which not only includes the use of the post office for a community hub, but also to include postal banking. As we are all aware, banks are closing across rural Canada, leaving rural Canadians a lack of banking services, and a bank at the post office would meet the needs of rural Canadians. We would also like Canada Post to provide broadband internet to rural Canadians and become an internet provider. On January 24th, 2018, the federal government announced its vision for the renewal of Canada Post. The government did announce it was ending its plan to convert community mailboxes, but left the 850,000 Canadians without door-to-door. To this date, over 900 municipalities have submitted resolutions to the federal government on service expansion and postal banking, and the federal government listened. Minister Quattro announced that Canada Post expands service and look at innovative ways other countries have expanded services. Although the minister was vague on this, we think this can include community hubs, postal banking, additional services for seniors like a seniors check-in program, and greening the post office. The minister also recommended profits from these initiatives to be reinvested into expansion of service for Canadians. This could mean that the 850,000 Canadians that lost their home mail delivery could have it reinstated. Many innovative and forward-thinking ideas have been put forward in this report. We will enhance our national infrastructure, social communities, and strengthen economic viability of rural communities. But we still need municipalities like Minto to continue to put pressure on the federal government to ensure rural municipalities receive the services from the post office they deserve. On behalf of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, we ask that the town of Minto endorse the letter of support to retain, enhance, and expand postal services. Thank you for your time and support. I'm willing to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Thanks, Jared. Questions?
Yes. The letter of support. We've got a lot of letters. Would it be Richmond Hill letter or Kingsville? They're all similar, but
those are ones that have previously been passed.
okay.
What we're asking for is a support letter from to be sent to Minister Quattro.
And is it?
We have a copy of it here.
Yeah, it's in the package.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that one there. Okay.
Let me get that up.
Got it. Okay. So that's the one that we're asking you to support right at the very beginning?
Correct.
And it's similar to what Kingsville and some of the others you've got copies of.
Oh, there it is right there, yeah. Okay. All right, so that was one we should be concentrating on.
Council support, or we just need a motion that the mayor would.
Anybody got any concerns? FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, I'm on the board, and been very into the rural forum, as you know, working hard at keeping the government understanding. I know when they came through after the election and froze everything, but it's not all finished, so we have to continue to be on guard if they could open up, and then we'll be back.
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is actually the FCM actually did put a resolution through.
Yes, they did.
And there actually is a member motion bill in Parliament right now on implementing a postal bank. It was supposed to be heard on the 18th of November, but it's been delayed now till October, I think 14th, 16th ish.
Right? Yeah, and I haven't fleshed all that out yet, but I mean, I think they're still working on what that would look like.
Yes. The ball is rolling, but we just need, like I said, we just need more municipality, put a little bit more pressure on the federal government to make these things happen.
What's everybody's thoughts?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The part that's bolded in the letter, the sample letter, says we are asking you to apply this measure to all the households who lost door-to-door delivery as promised by Liberal MPs. That door-to-door delivery, is that counting, or is that including rural mail delivery in Ontario, or is that actual door-to-door?
Actual door-to-door delivery, like in urban areas.
So it probably makes sense for us not to include that line since we don't have any of that here.
If you feel free that you'd like to amend it to remove that part from it, feel free.
Yeah. Our concern is we've never had it. So
yeah.
So for us, the rural is very what I'm concerned about, in which I've voiced my opinion at FCM, is the rural. The fact we don't want to lose the rural delivery, and we don't want to lose our post offices in our rural communities, which is one of the things that we're closing down as well. Yeah. So that's our concern. So you don't have a problem with us amending that?
Absolutely not. We've actually had a lot of municipalities that have, met the needs of their community, and we've told them that they can't amend the letter to their needs of their community.
Well, it carries more weight if we just don't do a form letter.
Well, that's and just my own thought is we did have a bank leave Clifford. And we do have a very strong post office in Clifford. So if we did get some kind of banking in Clifford through a postal, that would be a benefit to us. So because I don't think we'll get another bank going into Clifford. It's a small town, and banks are staying in small towns, like little ones. Anyways, okay. Any other suggestions? Anyone want to make a motion?
I would make a motion.
Okay.
Amend the letter to make it more appropriate for no.
Okay. Great. All in favor? Thank you, Derek.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Public question period.
We got to change the order of that.
I don't
Seriously.
You know what? I don't think it would matter tonight, Judy. I don't think so. Right?
Maybe not, but.
Okay. You had one, you'd stay, wouldn't you? Correspondence? Anybody got anything in there you want to pull?
Well, Mayor Bridge, I just wanted to point out we happen to have our first letter from the executive director of AORS, and it's certifying that Mr. McIsaac has passed the Public Works Leadership Development Program. He's here tonight.
Is he going to get his diploma tonight?
Oh. No, but just wanted to pass on that. Congratulations.
Awesome. Congratulations, Mike. It's always tough to go back to school.
Later on cemeteries and municipal.
Yeah, he's got some things later that we can work him over at the cold. Okay.
Which one's next, Mike?
Which one's next?
Who knows?
I'm not even sure. There are a couple more courses that I got to take.
Can I have a motion to accept the Council Turton, Deputy Faulkner, all in favor? Good. Okay, now moving on to reports of committee, town staff matters. Minutes for receipt. Do we have any?
Well, we do. We have mine's the first one.
It's not on my.
No.
No delegation.
Nothing.
There's nothing here.
No.
I read something about that.
Yeah.
No, there's an email delegation. That's the first one. That's the only staff report we have. Right?
We got many.
No. Oh, I thought you were on reports of committees.
Committee minutes.
There's no minutes.
There's no minutes. That's why I was
jumping ahead.
He's jumping ahead.
I'm trying to move you along.
I'm just asked the question. I said,
I got a
there's
long
no
drive
minutes
home
that
now.
I've seen. See, so I'm just
Councilor
making sure.
Turton asked if he could stay a little longer, if we could drag the meeting out.
Okay, so we're moving right into staff reports, and CEO Clerk is so excited to talk about the emo delegation request, which I talked to him today about. I said, who are we going to request to? There's nobody in any seats yet. There's no cabinet ministers yet, but I'm sure there will be by August, right?
June 29th.
Oh yeah, June 29th.
That's
Okay.
the day.
Okay.
What's the saying, Mayor Bridge? You strike the iron while it's hot.
Yes,
So
we're going to be hot.
they'll be eager.
The 12 delegations that we've done since 2011 are listed there. And 2018 is the first one I'll ever been to where it's a government other than a Liberal government, which will be interesting.
Oh, you got that in there, didn't you?
Since 2011, Minto has expressed concerns with some of the previous government's initiatives, so none of these things really ought to be a surprise, certainly to the staff people who support these ministers and so forth. So I go at length through sort of 6 areas that we've kind of hammered on over the years. And there's a bunch of other areas that we brought forward comments on, such as changes to the Municipal Election Act, Green Energy Act, source water protection, talked about firefighter certification, all the things we've had to do under asset management planning. These have all added to our costs. Those have added to staff costs and consultant costs. The other big issue is of joint and several liability. We got that to AMO one year, and abruptly at that conference in, I think, 2014, the Premier cut that right off at the knees. And we had a delegation with the former Minister, I think, of Municipal Affairs, who said yes, he was very interested, and then he was gone, and the initiative has been quiet since. MPP Pettipies did bring it forward, but so I think it's time to talk to them about those things again. Why not? What better time than now?
That was the only time I ever heard a minister booed.
Yeah.
At AMO for that. He said that's not a problem.
So one of the interesting things about some of these things we want to talk to them about is that they were phased in implementation. So Bill 148, for example, we talked 2 or 3 times about that legislation, and it's for vulnerable workers. So there's some things to come forward on that. Not even getting into the minimum wage issue, but the main one for us that's of concern is the call-in obligations that were going to be 3 hours. I think we should think about a delegation to the Minister of Municipal Affairs to get an immediate exemption for all municipal workers and volunteer firefighters from all obligations under Bill 148. The volunteer firefighters got a partial exemption, but not a complete one. So I think that's one of the items we could bring forward. Bill 68, modernizing municipal legislation. We did support some elements of that did streamline things. Some election timing changes that were made, and electronic meeting participation, even parental and pregnancy leave for counselors. Well, the odds of that happening is pretty slim. We'll see what the next term brings.
I'm sure you could say that,
but I think it's nice to have that in the event it were an issue.
Grandparent, yeah, we'd always do grandparents. So.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know why I said that. But
let's hope we.
March 1st, 2019, there are some mandatory things about codes of conduct. In fact, we have our integrity commissioner being hired by bylaw tonight, and we talked about whether we should pull that, but I think we need to go ahead. But it would be nice to ask the minister to put a moratorium on all these Bill 68 implementation things for a couple years until they figure out what's going on. You understand they have put on some kind of hiring freeze there. So I don't know entirely what that means yet, but hearing little bits and pieces about that. Number 3 was the Ontario Municipal Partnership Funding, OMP, and our Community Investment Fund, OCIF, Connecting Link Funds, and the Provincial Gas Tax. Talk a little bit about the shortfall that we've heard from AMO over the years between funding and availability of funds, and that without that being addressed, we're looking at 8.35% property tax increases each year. We were able to keep ours fairly well under that, but we did have a substantial increase because our OMP dropped $172,000. Even so, we still are getting 1.63. So the idea here would be maybe they would freeze it at least this year's levels, and then look at cost of living and increases rather than reinventing formulas. And one of the concerns I have is, having lived through when Mike Harris came in, there was a lot of axe and slash, and particularly with municipalities. And I think we'd like to get in front of them and talk about a measured, more reasoned approach. The other thing we always hammered home here is merit-based versus formula-based funding. And we've done pretty well on the merit-based, but I think if they were able to move this all over into formula-based, we might be able to grow our annual contributions to a couple $1,000,000 a year. And then I think this council and future councils could do quite a bit of planning with that kind of money kind of guaranteed. As it sits now, we get 2 million for Clifford and we get $1.5 million for Harrison, and then we may not get anything. So a delegation to the Municipal Affairs Ministry again, or Finance, to talk about some of those things would be something we want to think about. Go into the building code changes. They've dramatically increased the cost of home construction. It's kind of been a hidden thing because it's booming and people are buying and so forth, but the building code is no longer about having a safe home. It's about driving a climate change initiative, and the energy efficiency, I think, is important. But there are more things to come in 2020, 2022. I'm not quite sure what this meant, including mandatory airtightness testing without concern for results. That came right off their own website. So I'm just a little concerned that these changes really haven't been looked at from a cost-benefit perspective. Just as an aside, you recall I've talked a few times about our charging station in Clifford, and I don't mean to be critical about that, but that was a very, very costly station that government put in, and we wanted to accept that and be there for future customers who may need electronic cards, but we're bringing in $134 every quarter on that. That
quarter though.
So the cost benefit of it just isn't there. So it's nice to be forward thinking, but you don't want to get your head over the tips of your skis, I don't think. So we could slow it down a little bit.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that could go for a looper
It's
then.
up north now.
New roll. We're going up.
That may have changed today with the announcement that board carbon tax.
He can't.
We still got to fight that battle.
It's a
Yeah,
federal.
but it's the green energy program. Yeah. No, it's a,
Can't do the carbon tax.
right, I'm sorry,
There is
the
no
green
such
energy program.
So
Stuff, solar and
Well, yeah,
notwithstanding that, Mayor Bridge, some of these things are set to go in place,
that's what I'm saying.
and I think we have to get a handle on them and bring them to their attention. I have sent this report after it went to you to Mr. Pettipe, so he has it. So
Excellent.
the other one we talked at great length about is the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The suggestion there is that a lot of good work has been done there, but remember the rules are different on one side of the highway from the other. But how about we look at just making that a guideline, and we can all follow provincial policy as it was passed in 2014. It's beefed up to begin with at that time, so why have even more rules? So, or if not, then at least have an exemption for places like us that are very small and 50 kilometers away from an urban center.
Or an appeal process.
Right.
Yeah.
Sixth point is Drainage Act. We did have a delegation with OMAFRA people. They seemed a little bit surprised about the problem with DFO. And Greg did have a meeting with the DFO people about a month or two later. And I think we've seen some movement here. But I don't know, would it be a bad idea to even ask for an exemption from DFO comments on municipal drains? I mean, after all, they're farm drains. We have engineers and people of good intentions that can design these without having federal fisheries people look at it. But there's just some suggestions that came to my mind. I think it's a clean slate. And so I'm recommending you think about putting forward delegations, just not too many of them because we have to have them in by July 3rd. So.
Right.
One that I thought we went back to, and I think would be saving the money on both ends, would be dealing with the red tape and paperwork. I'm sure Gord can tell you how much paper we were talking about that just the other day, Gordon, about the paperwork that you have to do just to get a grant or to allow grants or to look at our disaster papers and how long that takes. Still taking time on you. And should be a lot quicker and a lot more efficient for that. Maybe we should be talking to them now when they're coming in to create a more efficient system.
Well, and I think along that line, Ron, if he's going to try and freezing the public service right now, job-wise, he's going to try to find any savings. He's going to have to find it by eliminating some of these regulations. And I think it's a good time. And I think that's why Bill kind of concentrated on regulations because there's a bunch that are coming in, and that's going to be more reports we got to do. And not only that we have to do the report, they've got to have somebody checking the report, although we're not sure that happens, but somebody checking the report. So if he's going to cut back on that $4 billion, I think was the promise, without cutting jobs per se, but or cutting it back and not increasing, you're going to have to get rid of some of these regulations, or at least slow them down. We've said for years, we just slow them down even. Like we can't catch up. They come at us so fast, and no check comes with them. Just the regulations, and it all seems to be downloaded on the municipalities. So this is a fresh bunch of people in there, I think, and I think we've told this to Randy, and we've told it through Western Wardens talked about it, through a bunch of other people, and I think probably Osum and AMO, they'll be talking about let's cut some of this regulation. I think that's where he's going to try to do it. So, but I think we have to get in front of it. You're right. And
I think we've done it, but I'm not sure who we talked to.
Well, and that's going to be the problem, right?
We'll have to look.
I think you got.
Yes, because I think that encompasses most of the stuff we're talking about.
Well, I think the growth plan, Greater Horseshoe is one, right? You've got quite a few ones. The building code amendments, those are all regulation based. Am I right, Bill? That's what you concentrated on. So I'd say you would pick a couple, because guess what? Everybody will want to be in front of them, and you're not going to. So pick the ones you want. I don't think you do all six. You don't want the staff to try to work on all six and then have only there's a lot of people going to be coming at these people at AMO, right? So pick a couple. What do you think? They're all good.
I'm probably not going to be there, but however, I truly believe that drainage one is pretty critical, because Department of Fisheries to be involved with all that. First of all, it slows the process, and number two, I'm not convinced that they understand municipal farm drains. So that would be my recommendation for one.
And I'll just give you a little update on that one too. And I was telling Greg this, that FCM in the last federal budget, they put $248 million in the Department of Fisheries. Part of it is because when they took this over in 2012, the conservation authorities, in fairness to the Department of Fisheries, they never given anybody to take all this on.
That's
so they've been sitting with, and I think you've been finding a little bit, and I asked, that seems to be speeding up a little bit. Now they obviously haven't hired enough people yet, but they are working on that process. So, but through FCM, we are looking, and that is across Canada. There's problems in Maritimes as well as in Alberta. Farm drains are out there. I'm sure there's.
But it's Ontario.
Well, I understand that, but I think you could leave it on there. But I'm just saying that I don't think you'll ever get them to take it away. But you might want to get them to work at it. But,
Bridge, I'd like to see the
yeah, I do.
If we had a regulated amount that we knew we
that's critical.
Yep. It would just make life so much easier. Always saying we'll do this project if we get funded, or exactly what was coming on the annual basis. It was being increased by the cost of living or whatever, but some guideline that we do whatever revenue does.
Good.
Bridget, maybe if I may, we do have a resolution that you do appear on the grading and drainage issue if you can. So I already have a presentation that I customized. So okay. We could put that one before OMAFRA again, just to keep the dialogue going. And then ask Ministry of Finance on the UMF side, and then maybe one to Municipal Affairs on regulation and streamlining.
Yep.
And I could take some of these points out and put it in that. So
that'd be good.
We have those three.
Yeah. Try those three on.
They may only give us one or none or all of them.
Would Golden Horseshoe be involved?
Yeah, that would be
regulation thing. Yeah. Is everybody good with that?
You bet.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that or just direction? Do I need a motion? Deputy Mayor Faulkner, Council Turton, all in favor? Great. Okay, super. Well done, Bill. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. 565 Low Street in Palmerston.
Yes.
You recall sending comments to the county for file B5117, and among the conditions was extending a water line or a water main or providing for water services to the severed lot. Right now, the water main is on Low Street. It would have to come across about, I think it was 40 meters to service that property. So we prepared a servicing agreement. There's a bylaw authorizing the mayor and I to sign it. The general rules in that servicing agreement are set out in the report. There's 5 or 6 of them in there. It's very similar to what you did for Galaxy Construction on the Lower Street. A slight difference here is that this owner may choose to sell the property, in which case this agreement would be registered on title and would bind the future owner of the lands. The key here is to make sure that whoever buys that lot or owns that lot knows they're obligated to put that water line in. Our recommendation is that you receive the report and you consider that bylaw later on.
Okay. Judy, all in favor? Okay.
Mayor Bridge, the next one is an encroachment agreement for the Diocese of Huron proposed for 31 Yonge Street in Hairston. This was also a former severance application earlier this year. You know the property. There's a garage overhanging onto Webb Street, about 2.1 meters. You have a picture of it there. Show you. They're splitting the old diocese property from this building. The contents of the encroachment agreement are also set out in there. Basically, if the town wants that thing down, they'll have to take it down. Otherwise, if we're doing work on the road allowance, we'll try and do road work so as to not damage it. But it allows the encroachment to stay there for as long as the town wants it to stay there.
Questions? Concerns?
Not for a long time.
Somebody move it? Councilor Elliott? Dirksen, all in favor? Okay.
Mayor Bridge, I don't know whether you want to go into Public Works for this next
Oh yeah,
part of the meeting or not.
Turn it over and take the load off here for a bit.
Oh, thank you.
Turn it over to Councilor Fred.
We have Mike McIsaac here tonight. Mike, the first couple or three items on the Public Works, the first one being the Minto Cemetery's master plan. Can you give us some information on that, please?
Yeah, Bridge, maybe I'll start. I'll maybe start on that one.
Bill's going to start.
We talked about the strategic plan earlier, and we talked about initiatives that we wanted to undertake back when we had the public meeting in 2015, and a cemetery management plan or management plans was in that as a short-term initiative. So ideally, we would have had that done within 1 to 3 years of passing the plan, or at least when the update was done. And we haven't. So, you know, over the last couple of years, you've had quite a lot of pressure on you from members of the public concerned with the condition of our cemeteries. And Mike and I toured them again and talked at length about what we've been doing, what we are doing, where we're going with our cemeteries. And what became apparent to me, I guess, in speaking to Mike and listening to the feedback we had from members of the public is that I think the management plan is long overdue to give us all some direction as to where we can bring our cemeteries out in the open more and into the public view and do a better job. I think that staff, we're all working very, very hard and dealing with the cemetery issues, and we have contractors in there that are doing their best. But what this tries to do is set us on a new course to bring our cemeteries in line with what our strategic plan said in 2013. And that is celebrating them as places that are part of our culture and part of our heritage. We do not have unlimited resources, and the plan talks at length about bringing volunteers in and working with the funeral services business and members of the public to try and get feedback and help in doing a better job. I think Mike and his crew in Public Works have done a lot to try and make things better, and sometimes circumstances like this year when you have ice and wind and so many interments all at once, it's really, really hard for them to keep up. So we thought it would be good to put our thoughts down in writing based on some of the other plans that are out there and try and get some actions and some timing on them to go forward to funeral services provider, to you, and eventually to members of the public to get feedback on where we want to take our cemeteries from here for the next 5 and 10 years. So that's what we've done by preparing this document in-house. It is a first draft. It is not the final answer for everything. I think we're seeking feedback from council and from certainly the funeral services businesses here this summer. We are currently and have been out to tender for the design work on the options for interring cremated remains, and we would like to take the summer to integrate that work into this plan and beef it up a bit. Get some feedback from the funeral service providers, and then have something that we can go to public fall. The plan goes through the budget for the cemeteries, how that works. It talks about our strategic initiative. And just want to read section 7.8. It says that the town established cemetery management plans to assist with long-term capital planning, increase visual appeal, enhance interment options, and increase cemetery use as a place to learn about the people, stories, and history of the community. That's the direction that council gave us. That's what this plan intends to do. It does not have all the answers right. But what it does do is talk about actions that would see in our next grass cutting tender, for example, go from 1 cut a week to 2 or 3 cuts every 2 weeks. And instead of weed eating in between every second week, do it every week. It talks about evaluating our chapel buildings and making better use of them, and making decisions in a rational way about what equipment should be kept and what should be done. Maybe we want to get electricity back in one or more of them and open them up to the public and have interpretation in there. Maybe we want to have adopt a cemetery program where people could volunteer to help us with some of these extra cuts, because when we talk to our contractor and say, would you cut it more, they would love to, but they don't have the people either. So maybe we're moving toward a situation where we go back to having a cemetery person or two. I don't know where it might take us, but that's the kind of feedback this plan is meant to create and allow opportunity for people to give us their thoughts on as we move forward. So there's 22 actions in the plan. Everything from doing tree inventories to getting better mapping, to having a donation policy for our cemeteries, to setting a work plan whereby we make sure that we're in and have everything restored as best we can before Mother's Day, which is kind of the target we've been setting, to having the volunteers come and do a walkthrough before Mother's Day to help find things, because they're huge facilities. Just start walking around in them, drive around in them, and we may miss things. The other main initiative it's talked about in here is bringing our TLC people into the facilities on a regular basis. You can see, if you look carefully, some of the nice touches that Paul and his crew have already added in there. But having them go in and look at recent interments, making sure they haven't been disturbed by the grass cutters, watering, raking, cleaning stones, I think that's another option to look at, and to try and bring these cemeteries back up to a condition that I think we're all going to be proud of. And in fairness to Public Works, we asked them to do an awful lot, and I think we need to give them the resources to be successful. And I think this plan helps us chart that direction. I know they work very, very hard. When I hear Lori every week having those conversations with people about their plots, and then Mike and others having to deal with families during their ceremonies and getting everything located right. There's a lot that goes on that we don't talk about. Grass cutting is one, but there's a lot of things that go on in this operation that I think this plan sets us in the right direction on. So I appreciate Mike and giving his feedback. I appreciate Councillor Dirksen and some of the other members of council who've brought this to our attention over the years, and the members of the public who continue to bring this to light. And I think our intent is we want to do a better job I think we need a rational plan to make us move in that direction. And I've learned a lot about the cemeteries. You can't learn much about Clifford Cemetery, unfortunately. There's not a lot that I've able to find, but the others, we're talking about facilities that are more than 140 years old. And I think this brings them. We've always wanted to do these management plans. I think we've got to start on one now finally, and I think if council's willing, we'd like to do some more work on it over the summer with the funeral services providers and with our consultant once we bring that information back to you next meeting. And then we'll get into engaging the public later in the fall. But been through all the cemeteries today. They're in the process of being cut. I think they're better than they were 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're still not perfect, but I think we're working on things. I love a lot of the things that Paul and his crew and Mike's supporting them have done to try and improve the look of things in there, and there are subtle things, but I think we need to make sure we're on top of, particularly where we've had recent interments, and making sure things are growing and going the way we want them to grow there. And Mike's talked about trying hydro seeding and some other ways of speeding and helping that along.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
Not really. Questions?
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Faulkner.
My congratulations on this report. The only thing that I'm a little disappointed in is a more definitive approach to the columbarium for Hairston and Palmerston. Like I believe the wording is that I just had it. Has identified the cremation garden and chapel area as a possible site for a columbarium or similar feature as another option to enter cremated remains. We've done a lot of discussion on that.
No, but I think Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
In fairness, through you, Mr. Chair, you're absolutely right. It's not in there, and we have out to RFP for a landscape architect right now.
You bet.
Yeah. So that report to recommend hiring that person comes due July 3rd, and so we will have that person start to work on those designs, and they will come back to you this summer. So, and then we'll put that in this plan. So there'll be very definite plans for the columbarium and the niche cremation gardens for all 3 locations. There'll be drawings and financing options, things for you to consider this summer.
Okay. Councilor Anders?
I wanted to comment on the report. It's an excellent report, and I think having that master plan is a really good thing. Cemeteries are really important to people. We know that. We get lots of feedback. I think this shows our intent to follow through with it, and I think trying to get some volunteers, although we do ask an awful lot of volunteers, but there's people who have a really deep interest in cemeteries and the history that's contained in them. I think maybe we could get some public interest there and get people to, congratulations, this is really well done.
Mayor Bridge.
Just want to point out that Councilor Dirksen did an excellent job of taking an individual and getting some good feedback. And I think in fairness, but it was difficult times. And Mike and Bill certainly have always been very sympathetic to our situation. I think Bill pointed it out. One of the problems is, and you have to figure it out, and that's what I like about the draft plan and where we're going, is what's your investment? We're now spelling it out, and if we get if people come to us and say they'd like to volunteer and do the group thing, that's fine. But if not, then they'll have to expect it to go on their tax base. But if we decide that that's what you need and what people want, that's a service that we're provided. So, but to have a plan like this going forward, I think Councilor Anderson talked about it. It just gives you that blueprint, and I know Deputy Mayor Faulkner's excited about and worked very hard at trying to get the columbariums going. And the reason I wasn't too concerned is I knew we had that.
No, I realize that. I just thought it would have been in the plan.
Yeah, but it will be back in the plan. In fact, we're ahead of the game on that. We've already sort of pushed that down the road. We'll get that report back, and then we can see where we go.
I'm satisfied.
Because the other thing you read, and I've been trying to do a bit of research, is that down the road, a lot of, maybe 65% of the people might be cremated.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I was at the Legion listening to the department What was the guy's name? He was the assistant or the department. I remember that. Where you and I were there.
Yeah, his name was Carrie, and he's from the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. Formerly, they used to be a cemeteries branch, I think, under Consumer Affairs, but they are now the authority for governing the rules of cemeteries, internment, and all those things.
And when I said to him that we actually do look after ours with town staff, he said, what a percentage? I think 65% don't do that.
70% are volunteers. And the issue is there's all these rules. And if they enforce the letter of the law, as Councillor Anderson indicates, you're going to lose that 70%. And in a way, despite all the issues that we have, at least we're a municipality, and we have staff to do these things. There's so many don't, and it's hard for him to enforce one set of rules across the province with all these diverse organizations.
And so it was a really interesting talk, and they talked about green burials and all the other things that are coming down the road, and embalments, maybe you don't need them, and all this other stuff. So we have to have something in place. So I'm kind of excited to turn back to the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ball.
Just one thing, as Councillor Anderson said, the volunteer idea of it, I think, especially the walking tours and things like this, they've taken ownership in it. But I noticed it at a low priority and wasn't. I just wondered if that could maybe be considered moving up on the plan as the plan is going through. Volunteer involvement gets pushed up.
Hey, absolutely. Those are just not. I wouldn't want to call them placeholders. They're just some ideas we had as far as timing. I sensed the pressure was on maintenance issues, I think, right now. But some of these other things may need to wait, but they may not need to wait that long if we can get on top of some of these other things. Or if we have a groundswell of support from the public that they want to help out with someone like the group that went around and inventoried all our barns. If they want to help with a cemetery history, then that's great. There's local historical societies. They buy in. It could be well earlier than 2022. And none of these things are etched in stone.
Okay,
this is a
then
first
I'm
draft.
looking maybe at a different volunteer group.
You're
I
thinking
was
grass
thinking of
cutting.
a volunteer group just kind of walking cemeteries looking for issues.
Yeah, I think we would want to do that next spring.
Okay, wonderful.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So overall, I'm very pleased with this report, and I really want to thank everyone for the work they did on it. It's a really great start. There's definitely a number of initiatives that we can accomplish. I love the idea of engaging the public as well and including the funeral directors in the plan. Maybe from those meetings, a cemetery board or a committee could be established, or maybe cemeteries show up on an agenda of a already existing committee, because I think right now we're not really looking after them to the point that we should be. I've got a lot of notes here, but I'm not going to go through quite as many because Bill covered quite a few of them. I would really like to see a training component for our staff. We train for everything else, and cemeteries are very much unlike any other responsibility that we have. There's lots of best management practices and turf management and those kinds of things that we could maybe be looking into. There's some things that can't be done until they need to be done, like preparing or repairing grave sites and cleaning up damage after a storm, that kind of thing. But it seems like everything that we do is very reactive rather than proactive. And I'm just wondering, could we include now the TLC staff will help a lot, but maybe we could include a patrol from the Public Works in the off season, just to make it more of a priority. Cemeteries are really important places, and when I wrote that down, I realized the acronym is RIP. Not only are they where we lay our loved ones at the end of their lives, which by itself should be reason enough to treat cemeteries with the utmost of care and respect. They're a space that is frequently visited by many people for many reasons. And whether our cemeteries are visited by daily walkers, which I know happens mostly in Harriston because it's very much in the town. Palmerston and Cliffords are a little bit further from town. Or or visited to reflect on a life lost, or visited to find information, whether it's somebody close by or whether it's somebody far away. The importance of keeping these spaces in good condition just can't be underestimated. We have tons of great things happening in Minto, and part of the reason that people from far and wide talk about Minto in such a positive way is because of that pride of ownership that is taken in the care of our facilities, and unfortunately our cemeteries have kind of slipped away on us, and so we need to. I think this report is just a great start to getting back on that road. Just wanted to say thanks for the report again, and I hope the public does embrace this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the next steps.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else, then the recommendation is that the council receive the CAO clerk and road and drainage foreman's June 11th, 2018 report, Minto Cemeteries Master Plan, and that staff proceed as outlined in the report with review of the draft cemeteries master plan by local businesses and funeral services, integration of the consulting designs this summer into the plan, and scheduling a public meeting on the document this fall. Can I have a mover and a second? Councillor Anderson, Deputy Mayor Faulkner, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Anyone against? No, everybody was for it. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the semi-annual municipal drain update by our roads and drainage foreman, Mr. Mike. You want that one, or you need help?
Mike on the mic.
Thanks. So this is just basically an update of our previous report that came. I'm trying to think. February, December was it? Okay, yeah. So what you see in red is the updates for each of the drains that we've been previously working on, and what the current status of them are. Two of the reports, the reports came to council earlier today, with the hopes of a third one coming to council as well on July 3rd. There's a couple others that are getting close. The DFO was out to visit multiple sites on June the 6th with Dietrich Engineering. So they're just waiting on a written kind of the plan to move forward with these drains in writing from the DFO. Also included in this report is some of the maintenance projects that we've undertaken over last year and into this year as well. And I guess, is there any questions on any of these drainage activities?
Yeah, you'll wait.
I can't remember what DART forms are.
So I had to actually look that up myself as well. It is the Drainage Act Review Team, which was brought together about 10 years ago?
More than that.
10 years ago? And then they actually brought these forms to use 2 years ago. Yeah, and it's compiled of drainage superintendents across Ontario, the engineering firms, conservation authorities, and is DFO a part of that as well? Yeah. So all the agencies have basically come together to come up with this form to move forward.
So if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
When it says DART forms have been submitted, so this group looks at these forms and then gives it's okay to do the maintenance? Is that what happens? Or?
The first step is maybe Greg, if you wanted to come up.
Yeah, Greg.
Yeah.
What was yours?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Greg's had involvement with the process of the DART.
Yes, this all came about years ago. The DART team got together with all the different agencies to try to standardize things. Getting approvals from DFO was always one thing. Conservation authorities was another. This is geared more towards the Conservation Authority for some standardized forms. There was a drain classification thing that was done probably 20 years ago for municipal drains. And they've redid the way they do their classification now, which the way they do it now based on science is better, although a bunch of the information that we were using for drain classification, they now say is obsolete, and it's an unfortunate thing, but Maitland Valley Conservation Authority happened to lose all their data. So anything that's in the Maitland, we're starting from scratch, which is, that's inconvenient, but the dart forms, the dart forms, if you're going to do maintenance on a open ditch, then you just fill them out first. It's kind of a standard form, and they're usually a week or two turnaround. So in that way, it's good.
Other questions, Councillor Anders?
Through you. So I'm assuming that was fisheries department or something on the third line, fishing out. Somebody was fishing things out of the ditch there. So you find fish in the ditch, and then they tell us, oh, you can't clear that ditch because the fish like that pond, and we're not allowed to move them, or we remove the fish, or relocate the fish, or what's the deal? I'm just trying to learn here. 'Cause this seems really complicated. And we're going, it's a drainage ditch.
Yeah. I share your sentiments with, I think DFO should stay out of drainage ditches.
Yeah,
And if it's not a natural water course, as far as I'm concerned, if it happens to parallel a fence line and does a 90 and goes across, and then that's not a natural ditch. I think they should stay out of it. Unfortunately, they don't agree with us. And as far as what happens when they find the fish, that all depends what type of fish. If it happens to be red-side dace or an endangered species, then that is an issue. Actually, even if it's, I don't know my fish really well, but even if it's stickleback, which as far as I'm told, that's almost like a weed fish, they have some concerns about those as well. And sometimes a removal. We did one of those in Howick a couple of weeks ago.
Fish all the fish out of there.
DFO, I actually told them that I didn't think there was any fish in there. They guaranteed me I was wrong. So they sent 2 biologists, both with PhDs, up from Burlington to do a fish salvage and rescue mission.
Wow. How many did they get?
They proved me wrong. They got one.
They got one.
Yeah. It was a stickleback nearly 2 inches in length. So they safely transported them downstream to an undisclosed location to protect his safety.
We have an 18-wheeler.
Like the fish are getting in there by some fluke, like
flooding.
they migrate somebody a bird.
Then a fisherman just emptying his bait box.
Like, and this stops the work on the drains then until they're satisfied with.
Usually doesn't stop it. It just makes it more complicated. Like if they happen to find like red-side dace, which they said for quite some time with drain 69, that was an issue because red-side dace had been flagged. They finally come out, and that was on June 6th. And they checked that, and they didn't find any. So that's a good thing for drain 69.
So they're flagged because they're endangered?
Yes, because there was a report of them.
They can't be that endangered.
Oh, they're all over the place.
Drainage ditches.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I'm trying to understand this, and I just don't get it.
Fair Bridge.
But it just have to understand though, and I think we talked about this the last time. Some of our drainage ditches, because of where they are and they factor growing over and all the other stuff, and they do flow into rivers or other places. It's not unusual if you keep it cool enough that fish won't migrate back up. Mm-hmm. And so in some cases, I remember when I was younger, I was fishing for trout one year, and I'd come out to fish that same little creek for trout the next year, and somebody had gone down there with a big hi-ho, and because it was a drainage ditch, mm-hmm. but because it for years had been left to go, it became a cold water. And I think you talked about that. Unfortunately, a lot of ours, because they're spring fed and there's other things coming in, our drainage ditches can be fairly natural.
So like a stream.
Yeah. They can be like a stream, but they're not. They never were. They were dug way back when, but that's how we ended up in this situation.
Councillor Dirksen.
There's lots of ways that fish can get where we don't expect to find them. Ducks can pick them up on legs and on their feet when they're swimming someplace and then move and swim again, and yes. Well, I was going to say they've shown up in liquid manure tanks. Goldfish. Where do they come from? Well, they didn't fall from the sky. There's no waterway to get there, so they figure they came on duck's feet or something.
Other questions, you guys? Okay, well, thank you. We'll go to the recommendation. Greg, we appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you for taking all these questions and answering them.
Just
Yeah,
one
sorry.
quick.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the fact that we're looking at 3 successful. Let's move forward, which I think will help. And I'm very encouraging to hear that tonight, and keep up the good work on that. I think we should have this on probably a quarterly basis or something, just because then we can actually just, it doesn't have to be, it's sort of like this. This is great with the red. Say, well, here's a couple more wins.
Right.
We have to show some wins out there because you're dealing with 24 of them. Yeah. And I think people do get frustrated.
Yep.
And if we can't show wins every now and again, so I would recommend it.
CAO White.
Mayor Bridge, the current resolution is every 6 months. No. You want to change that, or?
I just think because we're on the go here that we should update it another 3 months,
But the problem is there'll be less to update, so it'll be more discouraging.
yeah, whatever.
It's up to council. We're on a semi-annual.
We're on a
so
semi-annual already. Okay, that's fine. As long as we don't
So
leave
is
it.
it done spring and fall?
We did it in December last time, so we'll give you one more before the end of the term.
Well, that'd be nice if we had one more
frequent than
our
we have.
term. Just to, that's fair. I mean, then we can.
The fishing is.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation, one more thing, Greg, we appreciate your flexibility on that drain 39. I mean, it's great to get it through here tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the flexibility was great, so thanks a lot.
No, you're
So
very
the
welcome.
recommendation here that the council receives this information, the roads and drainage foreman's June 15th, 2018 report, semi-annual municipal drain update. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Seconder, Councillor Elliott. All in favor? Against? That's carried. So the next item is the treasurer and the road foreman on the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. It's okay with the mayor. We can go ahead with this,
You
or
go
we
for
can
it.
pass it. Thank you very much. Who wants to speak on this?
Treasurer
Treasurer Duff.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so here we have another infrastructure grant application, and we do need some direction from council on this. The deadline is August 28th, but I can tell that the time involved to actually prepare the technical details of any of these applications is going to be considerable. So we looked through all the guidelines, and I think the mayor and our engineer kind of sat in on a call that I made to OMAFRA because we were unsuccessful in our last one, and that was Queen Street South, in Palmerston there. And bottom line, the health and safety concerns were just not sufficient because these last rounds of grants are kind of unique. They're kind of like the clean water, wastewater. You know up front the maximum amount you can get, so you're trying to tailor the project to that. And it's kind of like, oh, there's a number, that's what we're going to get. And then we found out on the call there's 3.5 times as many applications as there is money involved. So just because you have a letter with a number on it, not necessarily you're going to be successful. So in going through the guidelines, Mike and I noticed that it says right in there that additional consideration will be given to joint applications. And to the best that I'm aware of, I don't think we've ever done a joint application. So one of the things, again, looking at our asset management plan and long term, are some assets on the Minto Normanby town line, and they go back, I would say, at minimum 3 councils ago. They're identified as something that we'd like to do, but because they're a shared responsibility with our neighbors, West Grey, sometimes Minto's already, and West Grey isn't, or West Grey is, and we're not. We thought, well, before we even come in front of you, let's talk to West Grey. How do they feel about this? And it turned out we met with their public works director and their treasurer. They're kind of going through the same thought process as we are. They have some things within their municipality that they'd like to do, and they also would like to get this Minto Normanby town line done. So that was favorable. We said, fine, let's research it. And another thing that is in bold print is you can't bundle separate structures here. So there's like 3 what we would call bridges, culverts along the section. So if we applied for 3 structures, pretty much 100% we're out, because that's viewed as like bundling different assets. So that's not a way we can go. The road is in relatively poor condition with PCI of 5. So we thought, well, there's one thing. Structure A, I believe, is the worst one. And West Gray had some ideas that perhaps it's over-engineered. It's basically a municipal drain. So that you were just talking about municipal drains that actually are more permanent than they look, and this is a good example. So there might be a way to kind of downsize that. Their allocation is only slightly larger than ours, so they're close to 1.1 million. We're $1 million. This is 90% funding. Plug in the formula. We need a $2.3 million project. So Chris Clark of Triton believes that there are ways that we can gear our application to that amount. So we thought, well, it's worth bringing forward. We have a couple other things to go through too, but West Gray has not yet brought it to their council. They said, see what you think, and if that's favorable, they'll take it to their council. And likely Minto would be the lead applicant. It's a joint application, but one person has to take the lead, and it's a little similar, though there's no grant involved, to the Howard Town line. We're like, well, one of us paid the contractor and then the other reimbursed it. So, but just we didn't have a grant on that one. So, then the other ones are the 12th line, and I think we're all very aware of the issues there. The problem from our point of view is we want to slot this, in our case, about 1,250,000 issue, and this one is a bit less than that, and it kind of leaves money on the table. That's one of the things. The other is in Brunswick Street in Palmerston, and it was a different program that we put a large application through. There were some sanitary sewer considerations, some culvert and bridges, and some road work, and we ran into the same thing. The health and safety issues just were not high enough in view of the province, and the number of benefiting people wasn't enough too. And again, it leaves some money on the table, and it addresses one of the issues. So that's kind of our quandary, and we're happy to answer any questions. Or you want to say something, Mike?
Just for clarification, with the Minto Town line, with the application there, if we were to go through as a roads project, but there is also an opportunity to do the corrections on the structures there. So it's a way kind of for us to go around that, is it not?
Yeah. Basically, we have to go under the roads, and there's different technical schedules, and there happen to be certain components within that road, but the primary purpose is the road. If we had a road that was a condition of 8, I think it would be very difficult, but the road is not very good. One of the factors is, say there was a detour, the detour may be in West Gray, that road could become an alternate route, and that would help our case. Also, the kids on that road go to Minto Clifford, or if they're in French immersion, they go to Palmerston. So there are school buses on the road, and that's another consideration.
And I think with I haven't got the traffic counts back from the Minto Town line, but we believe there's a lot more traffic using it this year because of the culvert repairs on County Road 10 going through to Newstead 8 and area there too. So it is being used as a detour right now too.
Questions? Average?
Go ahead, Judy.
Sorry.
I was just going to. Sorry, thank you. I was just going to ask. Sometimes in these grant application processes, they look more favorably on a partnership or a collaboration. Is that the case, you think, with these?
Spelled right out in the guidelines.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Mayor Bridge.
Well, my first question would be, and you mentioned it earlier, that West Gray hasn't gone to council yet. So I think we got to be a little bit flexible here, because I got a gut feeling they're not coming through with this. But that may just be. But you guys had a meeting with the roads person, right? Yeah. Have anybody talked to Mayor Eccles?
I'm not sure if.
I don't know if they've had informal. Just coincidentally, they were having to have a council meeting on, and we were going to be ushered in as a delegation. So we're not ready for that yet. So no, that is one of the issues. They have the exact same issue we do.
We've got a limited time frame to get this application in, so I don't want to lose the time frame if they come up and drag their feet.
Yeah. So kind of what we're asking for is choice number 1, choice number 2.
Yeah. And my personal opinion is I really lean towards County Road 12, or Township Road 12, or Line 12, because that one, because of the economics of it, I know it doesn't maybe have the safety issues, but the economics we would put that on that basis. And I realize we might leave some money on the table, but at the end of the day, it's 90% funding, and I'd rather have a project that actually benefits us quickly. And I believe if we don't get we did a good job, I think everybody's settled down right now, that we were able to patch it. But we really need to do that next year, one way or the other. So we have to do that project, because, and that's what in here you see where we've asked to move from 80 to 60. And what we mean to do there is I thought we might have this bylaw on tonight or talk about it, but maybe it's gonna be on the next one. But the fact is, if we don't change the mentality of the truckers, the only way to do that in this case, I think, is, and we've got advice on this, when now they come out, they don't like to turn left because they got the bends to go around at 60, so they go right because now they can go 80 right to Pike Lake Road. And we're anticipating maybe down the road taking that. A lot of people walk on that road and also walk on Pike Lake Road, and turn that all into a 60. And I see that does reduce some of your costs, but it also will make those truck drivers a little less wanting to go that route, because now they're not going to pick up the extra 20 kilometer speed. And we don't have to fix it as much, but we have to do some safety issues going. We had a meeting with them. We talked about it, but I'm just saying it's hard for them. I'm sure if they've got a route they want to get to someplace, rather than go back out to the county road and then on to 89, they're going to take the one that has 80 kilometers. They're not going to take the one that has 60. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up tonight. That to me is our like, if you want to put it all, I don't have a problem with trying to do the other one, but I think that to me that'll be the next one up, 12th line.
Deputy Mayor Faulkner.
Just I totally concur with Mayor Bridge on the 12th as, I guess, the safe application, but I also think we need to initiate the conversation with Mayor Eccles of West Gray, because that road needs to be done, and I would say it's a poor excuse on our part saying that we're going to choose another project because we don't know what they're going to do. Well, we should find out what they're going to do.
We have to know right away.
Yeah, and we have to know right away. That's right.
Don't want to miss the opportunity.
Couldn't agree more.
Councillor Caldwell.
That was my question: is what is our timing? What is our next meeting compared to when is the application due?
So the application's due August 28th. So that's kind of why I'm bringing it forward now, which is like enough time.
2 months.
Yeah. However, we need, if we go for the joint one, a direction from you, a direction from them, and then if that's the one that's chosen, it's required in the agreement that we do a joint thing, like you're going to do this and responsible for that too. So I would hope, again, if that's the one that you want to go with, that West Gray would put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And yeah.
Bridge.
Well, and we have to remember we've only got one meeting in July and one meeting in August scheduled. So like it's tight timing. It might not seem tight, but we don't have 4 meetings. So I don't have a problem calling the mayor and finding out. They were talking about that, and I called Mayor Eccles up and say, how does it look on your end? Because we have to know. And because we have other projects and we want to get one of them approved.
Right.
Even if we initiate the process for next year, if there is.
Possibility. We'll have to see what happens.
Councillor Jackson.
Um,
Can't see that far.
So if I lived on 12th line, west of Highway 89, and council was chatting about paving the 12th line and being concerned that the project was going to leave money on the table, I would say, why don't you jump across Highway 89 and pave that road? Had that request before.
Jump across the dead end road.
Yeah. If we're leaving money on the table.
Oh, I see. Oh, to fulfill. Yeah. You bet.
I don't know, there's half a dozen places down there. Like, I realize it's not, but it would last a long time.
I think,
Go ahead, Mike.
If I'm remembering this correctly, it all has to be in the same area. Like, it's got to be successful.
Can't do 2 projects.
Yeah.
Contiguous.
Too far apart.
Oh, okay.
Even though it's the same road, it's the same thing as like having 2 structures on 2 separate roads. Even though it's kind of the same.
So
it's on the same river system. 2 separate projects. You can't bundle that.
Okay, so how far on 12th line are we talking about here?
So basically, it's from Road 1 north to County Road 6. It's 2 kilometers.
Oh, so it's just that 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
Councillor Colwell.
Quick question, was 12th line in our budget for this year?
Some of it.
A small part of it, yes.
Small part of it? Because I'm thinking we presented that to the public and we told that we would, be doing that. I think that should be taken into.
So and even with the 250 that's proposed this year, there's still the opportunity to do some of the works later in the season. There is a structure that needs to be replaced, just a culvert, and then possibly some of the guide rail systems could be done this year.
CAO White.
Yeah, my suggestion is that we, for now, and start with the joint project, and that the 12th line, whatever form it takes, be the choice if West Gray doesn't go ahead.
Correct.
We did put 250,000 in, and you've done quite a bit on the 12th line, and the 5-year project plan calls for another 250,000, I think, next year. So, and 700 through 2020. So I think we've got it on the radar screen, but I guess the staff, I wasn't privy to that particular conversation. I don't think our chances are a lot better if we can get to joint one, but we don't want to forget about the 12th line. That's our project if West Gray is not going. That's how I would recommend you.
You bet. I agree. Totally.
But can we set a deadline that if we have not had a commitment from West Gray by this date, we proceed with the 12th line application?
Yeah, I think at the latest we'll have to decide August 3rd or August 7th or whatever date that is.
Exactly.
And then you've got 2 weeks but we'll know before that. They'll start preparing the application.
So maybe we can put I won't be here on the 6th of the next 3rd. What's July 3rd? We have our next meeting. But maybe we could try to find out by then, and if it doesn't happen, then the council can pick the other one to go with. By July
3rd? That's good.
I do believe, I'm trying to remember how they have their process. I believe they take all their issues to the roads committee, and I think it was June 27th that they were going to take it to their.
But at least we'll know, Mike. I mean, if the roads committee recommends it, then at least you have an idea. But if they say no, it's not going to be in the works, then why are we waiting for it?
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so then the recommendation is that the council receives the treasurer's and public works foreman's report dated June 11th, 2018, and direct the staff to prepare an application under the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF program for a particular project chosen by council. Annaline, do you have that down?
For work reconstruction of a portion of the Minto Government Town line, including safety upgrades to a culvert located on the Sturgill Highway. And I'm thinking if they are
In agreement.
if they want to go into a project
Commit.
partnership agreement, otherwise it would be the 12th line, West County Road 16.
So do we have a, did we have a date then? Is it June? In June or July or what is it?
We'll report back to you July 3rd.
July 3rd. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Faulkner. Thank you, Councillor Caldwell. Everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
All right. All in favor of the motion?
Either or.
Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. I'll pass the chair back to our Deputy Mayor.
And I think it goes over at this point to the, your neighbor.
Treasurer.
I'm here. What do you
The
know?
Finance Committee has 2 items on the agenda tonight. And the first one is the 2008 venture refinance.
Okay.
Over Treasurer Duff.
Great. Thank you, Sarah Caldwell. So this one's unique. I've never done it before, and I will probably never do it again because this is one of our 20-year debentures, and we took this out in 2008. And this one, unlike I've checked, all our other 20-year debentures or 15-year debentures do not have this clause, but we have what they call is like a balloon payment. Our mayor will be very familiar with the mortgage and that too. So what we have to do is refinance the balance at the end of our 2018 payment. And the county treasurer has never done this before either. So I think we were thinking this is just we talk to our banker and say we want to refinance because we did all the authority 10 years ago. But that's not how it works. It gets treated almost as a brand new debenture. So if you recall, just barely 6 weeks ago, we went through the whole process on a much larger amount where the town of Minto requests the upper tier, the county of Wellington, to issue a debenture on our behalf. And that's basically what we're doing here. The amount is $557,000, which is the component. At that time, we did a debenture. $925,000 was over 10 or 20 years, and $1.2 million over 10 years. So the 10 years paid off, and that was a fire truck and some marina roofs. But these water and sewer components are continuing again, trying to match them over a longer period. So I must compliment the county treasury staff, our Weir Folds lawyers, Heather Douglas and Ioya, and National Bank, Dave Berner. They've really put us at the top because we'd have turned this around in about a day and a half. So,
Explain to me why a 20-year debenture is not a 20-year debenture again.
Okay, that is the question. Yeah. So what happens with the debenture, the way it was structured in 2008, basically what they do is issue 2 10-year debentures. The one 10-year debenture isn't fully paid off. It still has a balance of 557. So yeah, so like the term is 20 years, or the amortization 20 years, the term's 10.
Were you here in 2008?
I was, yeah.
So through you, Chair, I just want to congratulate on you the foresight you had that you would get rid of a 4.84% debenture and come up with a 3.067. What a foresight! I wish I had you on my team.
Pretty smart counsel too.
That was
the council that did that. What an amazing job!
Studying these long-term trends and charts, 2018 is going to be good. Yeah. So and the mayor's nailed it. That's your risk, which is again just like a mortgage. You refinance your mortgage. Well, interest rates could be up or down. Yeah. And actually, who would think the interest rates would have stayed down so long? Especially again the long term. And anyway, that's where we are. So we're actually going to save money, so it's a good thing. But
we just passed it at a county today at AFP. And so now they'll go to council on Thursday. So if we do this, then that's all done. On Thursday, they'll be done.
Is there any other questions or comments? No. Then the recommendation is the council accept the treasurer's June 13, 2018 report regarding 2008 debenture refinancing and considers passage of the related bylaw in regular session. Want to make that motion? Councillor Sturgeon, seconded by Councillor Elliott, all in favor? And the motion is passed.
And actually, like the interest part goes down from about 43,000 to about 8,000. Like it makes a fair difference too. So it's good. Yeah. Help our water and
that helps our debt service.
Yes. Yeah.
Borrow more money.
Don't say that.
Don't tell them that, Gord.
No.
I was just kidding.
Take control, Mary Lou.
And the second item on the agenda as we move on is the approval of accounts.
Right. So you may recall at the last meeting we didn't have any accounts, so we're 2 for 1 this time, and they're big ones. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Can we split it in 2 next?
Yeah. The first one, which is the smaller of the two, again, one of the things is debt charges at 73. We've got scoreboard for the, I believe it's the Harrison Arena for 19,000. We've paid our 5,000 towards one of the payments to the Chamber of Commerce. And we've bought some manholes, and I'm sure you've seen in the last couple of months there's been a lot of activity on the sanitary side of things. And I guess those are the big ones there. Trucking some sewer sludge for 10,000. So that's on that one. Again, the really big one. So mostly it's the county and school board levies, but also what Lindsay recorded is paying that debenture that we just talked about. So we actually, in mid-June, are paying out that 10-year balance and then borrowing it back July 3rd. So that's included there too. Our Clifford project, as you know, is well underway. So we have $75,000 in purchasing the street lights and that too, which they're not quite ready to go up yet, but we'll have them done. Surface treatment on the roads for $33,000. The beginning of some of the costs at the Harrison pool there for about $4,000. The cool cones, $5,500, which is up, and hopefully we paid the artists, and we also received some sponsorship for that. And again, more wastewater, about $7,000 in electric and repairs. So, anyway, big dollars.
Are there any questions? No, then the recommendation is the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Treasurer's report dated June 15, 2018 regarding approval of accounts and approves the Town of Minto accounts by department for April, May, and June 2018. Mayor Bridge, seconded by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, all in favor? And the motion is passed, and I turn the chair back to Mayor Bridge.
Thank you, Councilor Caldwell. And next up is the other businesses to close. And Mary Lou, do you want to start?
I just want to remind everyone of the Chamber of Commerce barbecue on July the 12th at 6 p.m. And free except the CNR is right.
You have one?
Yep.
Have you down?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'll let you have it.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind everybody of the cool cones, and for the folks that don't know, there's 10 cones downtown Hairston that everybody needs to get down and have a look. So and vote, yes. If you don't know how to vote,
No,
You can do it by paper.
you can.
Retail.
You can find out. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Ron? Oh, we never. Oh, Ron. Sorry, Ron.
Okay, again, I'm going to remind everybody this Saturday is an important day for our council and everybody to be out. We've got 3 really good, actually 4, include the Farmers Market. We have their Strawberry Festival that day too, Strawberry Shortcake Day. I think the first hour they were all gone, so if you want them, you better get there early. 9-1 race is starting at the park. I believe it's starting right at the park. Did last year. I'll be going in that one, trying to walk 5Ks. I think I should make it. If not, you'll pick me up. Hopefully I'm done by 1 o'clock. Is it 1 o'clock? I'm going to be jumping on a cart. I believe it's there.
Oh, 12:30.
12:30.
Oh, you have to really.
I'm going to really have to push
12.
it.
We have to be there by 12. We don't know when we're doing it. 12:30 or 12. No. I'm going to get to that, but
I got 3 hours to get that walk in.
you should get it.
Start
at 7.
And then right after that, at 7 o'clock that night, we open up with the Party in the Park. Got a new band this year, month of Sundays. They're based out of Mount Forest. They're really, really, really good. And of course, we've got Lulu's Roadhouse. Everybody loves them, and we always seem to get a nice crowd for that. Tickets are going well. We had to take tickets back to Home Hardware on Friday because they were sold out. So we're really excited about that whole day. It's kind of neat for a change that we have a whole day of festival. Glad that we've got everything going again. It's kind of how I dreamed it would happen. I'm glad to see the handcar races are back running again. Looks like that's going to be probably.
I'll talk to you. Hey, Judy, can I help you? Okay.
Just at 9 a.m., we're also going to do the final check presentations from the proceeds of IPM 2016 at 9 o'clock at the Farmers Market.
Oh, good.
So you're getting your strawberry shortcake.
Yeah, that's where I'll go get my strawberry.
Very good. Judy.
So I was going to talk about this past Saturday. There were lots of things happening. So I'll just pick on.
Go ahead, Judy.
I don't know. So I was going to pick on this one. This is the mural that the life skills class in Palmerston did. Much larger than this, of course. What I think is really significant is when you're standing on the pedestrian bridge looking at that mural, you're standing on the longest pedestrian bridge in Canada, and you're looking at the largest mural in Canada. And what I thought was really neat was the kids had lots of history lessons about Palmerston, and they all submitted designs, and then they kind of put them all together to come up with the final mural. So there's a huge pride of ownership there, and I think that I was thinking when I was doing my cemetery research, I thought there could be some of that kind of teaching and training as well in our cemeteries too, and teaching about the history and that kind of thing. If we had KELP or MIAC or some of these other groups helping us out, there could be an education component as well to go in with that. And I thought that was a really nice tie-in. And talking to those kids on Saturday, they were just over the moon happy that they had accomplished this, and they could tell you so much about the history of Palmerston. It was really quite amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Sure did.
That's all.
Well, like I said, there's lots of things happening on Saturday. There was Touch a Truck here in Harriston. There's a ball game in Arthur, and that was the Groves Memorial Doctors versus the North Wellington Healthcare Doctors. And it's first year for it. It's a fundraiser. They hope to make it an annual event. There was a bedpan trophy presented to Groves Memorial Doctors, and so North Wellington Healthcare will be working to get that back. And the North Wellington Healthcare's AGM is on Thursday evening this week at Palmerston District Hospital, if you'd like to attend that.
That's what you're going to say?
Nope.
Okay, we'll let you have a quick one.
I just, I guess I've never announced who the recipients of the awards. We had 27,000 to distribute to named charities, and the winners are Wellington County 4-H, Wellington County Farm Safety Association, Minto Fire Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Program, which we're working on, Hope. Gord, please give the acronym, what the acronym stands for.
I'm going to guess here. Healthy opportunities for enhancing empowerment.
Yes.
It's under the Mount Forest Family Health.
It's out of Mount Forest. They do a wonderful job for mental health. It's a great organization. And finally, and certainly not least, is the New Growth Family Health unit out of Mount Forest is going to get the final. So those are the 5.
Great.
Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Very cool.
Just
Thank
a couple things. One, Judy, when we did have a chance to go over there, thank goodness I was going to be over there at 10, and Judy came and got me. I was still walking around the farmer's market talking to people, and she said, I think they want you over there at 10.
You're going to miss it.
I almost missed it. And, but they were totally enthused. It was amazing. This one young guy come up and he said, I'm going to be the mayor of Palmerston next. Palmerston. And anyways, that was great. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up was on Thursday night, we had the suicide, and Ron pointed it out, and I was able to go to that, and there was, I think, around over 100 and some people there. Some of the stories and some of the comments. Facilitator was amazing. She was from Ottawa. She did a great job. And yeah, quite a few were there. And then I stayed around and walked into all the other rooms where people were actually working on the plans. I think we're going to get an amazing amount of good feedback. The youth group already did their feedback the day before. And talking to Paul and talking to Doug, our superintendent at the school there, we're going to be moving forward on this rapidly if we can, but probably not. Plans will come in September, but we'll be looking to the council to so fully support that. It's nice that we're going to have a bit of money because
thanks,
be some things. But when the students came to me and said, "What can we do after our last incident?" and what was scary for me was the facilitator said, when you get a situation like this, we've had a couple. Kind of goes in clusters. Okay. So we have to be very very on the ball and watching as close as we can, trying to make sure that our youth, and not just our youth, but everybody's protected on the basis of suicide. So, and the other thing I need from everybody is I need our team or the hand cars. Now, if you can't be there, you can be a cheerleader. But like if you can, like try to get there. Well, first of all, try to come and get enough for the Strawberry Social and the 911 run, but certainly be there sometime. But if we're going to be between 12 and 12:30, I think John Nader's going to be on our team, and we're waiting for Brandy, and you can push. I have a sore rib, so I don't know if I'll be able to do it this year. But I'll be there. Ron, you're on. Judy, are you on or you wait?
I actually have to be in Ancaster.
That's right. I knew you were away.
Sorry.
Dave's on. Okay, so just get there. We'll figure it out. We'll put the best team forward.
Sorry, Mary Lou, you have to.
And we've got eight teams already. Like 8 teams. We're hoping to have more, but 8 teams. So come and enjoy and have lots of fun at it. And that's it.
Can I interject one thing? The Horticulture Society is doing a garden plaque of the month again, but this year we're doing a backyard, a secret garden. So just for the people who might be watching, if you know of somebody who's got a gem of a backyard, and we won't know about it because we don't see them, we will need nominations so that we can judge them, and then we will have a scavenger hunt tour of those gardens. But we just need people to come forward and let us know about them because we know they're out there, but we don't know where they are.
Good. Okay. Okay, I think I'm moved by Councillor Turton, second by Councillor Caldwell. The committee of the whole convenes a regular council meeting. All in favor? Moved by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, second by Councillor Caldwell. The Council of Town of Minto ratifies motions made in the committee of the whole. All in favor? This one here, Bill. Pulled. We pulled it, right? So that one is pulled. We're going to have more information. Moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Elliott, bylaw number 2018-44 to authorize an agreement with Guy, how do you say that? Giorno. I get my Italian.
Geronimo?
Paskin Martino Dumlin LLP. Integrity Commissioner.
What was that one again?
Hopefully we never have to call him.
If we ever call this guy, Integrity Commissioner be introduced, read first, second, third time, passed off Council.
The guy's name is Guy. Just call him Guy.
This Guy is his real name. What's his
Giorno.
It's probably G. It is probably
Giorno.
I don't know. All in favor? Yep.
You asked me to correct.
My goodness, this guy
Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Caldwell. Can I have a little calm here? I would need a little calm here.
Oh.
Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Caldwell, the bylaw number 2018-45 to authorize the mayor and the CEO clerk to execute a site servicing agreement between the Corporation of Town of Minto and Frederick Donkersgo and it's Gerald Donkersgo. Okay, it's good. Donkersgood. Be introduced, read first, second, third time, passed over council, seal the corporation. All in favor? Shit, that's a bit of a Dutch word. Isn't it?
We got that. We're still
Huh?
making that.
Sinai. Synod, I know this one. Moved by Councillor Turton, second by Councillor Dirksen, to the bylaw number 2018-46 to authorize the mayor and the CEO clerk to execute an encroachment agreement between the town of Minto and the incorporated synod of the Diocese of Huron, 31 Young Street, Harrison. Be introduced, read first, second, third time. Seal. Okay. Okay. The Diocese. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Caldwell, the bylaw number 2018-47 to authorize an application for the town of Minto to the County of Moncton requesting the County of Moncton to issue a refinancing debenture in respect to capital works. Be introduced, read first, second, and third time, sealed, and passed in open council, seal the corporation. All in favor? A long meeting. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Deputy Mayor Faulkner, bylaw number 2018-48 to confirm the action of the Council of the Corporation Town of Minto respecting the meeting held June 19, 2018, be introduced, read first, second, third time, and passed over council, seal the corporation. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Turton. Council of the Town of Minto adjourns to meet the candidate to call the mayor. All in favor? Thank you for a good meeting, everybody.